Hello, children. Hello, children. Ladies and gentlemen, praise the Lord. Someone was watching me. Quick! Off the top of your head, if you had the choice, would you be a cat or a dog? If you answered cat, you're wrong. The answer is dog. That is the correct answer. All the cat people, sorry. You're wrong. Dog was the correct one. Yep. Our first audience question today is, what are good ways to deal with things that happen that you don't like? My first piece of advice would be to take a breath. James 1:19 says, be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. In other words, take a breath. Don't let your emotions get the best of you. If somebody does something to you that makes you mad, slow down and take a breath. If somebody hurts your feelings, don't be quick to give them a piece of your mind. Be slow to speak and slow to anger. Take a breath. My second piece of advice would be to get help. Proverbs 11:14 says, where there is no guidance, a people falls, but in an abundance of counselors there is safety. Without guidance in your life, you're going to fall into traps. When things happen to you that you don't like, you'll assume the worst. You'll let your emotions get all out of whack. You'll probably do and feel things that you regret. Instead, you should stop, take a breath, and get some help from Christians you trust. Talk to your pastor or church leader about what's going on. I can't tell you how many times I've been saved from doing something I would have regretted if I hadn't just stopped, taken a breath, and gotten help. My last piece of advice would be to love. This is probably the hardest piece of advice. Maybe you've been abused. Maybe you get bullied. Maybe your feelings get hurt a lot. Things we don't like are going to happen to us a lot in life. Instead of hating everyone for hurting us, God asks us to forgive and to love. Jesus says in Matthew 5:43 through 46, you have heard it said, love your neighbors and hate your enemies. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father in heaven. For he causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good. He causes the rain to fall on the righteous and the unrighteous. For if you love those who love you, what reward will you have? Jesus says that you will be rewarded in heaven for loving those who hurt you. Don't spend your life bitter and hateful towards those who do things to you that you don't like. Lay the heavy weight of bitterness and hate at the feet of Jesus. Choose to love and pray for those who hurt you. So my advice on how to deal with things that happen to you that you don't like is this. Number 1, take a breath. Number 2, get help. And number 3, love. Our audience discussion question of the week is, if God is good, then why does he allow school shootings to take place? Many of you have heard of the Oregon shooting that's taking place. It seems like these shootings happen more and more all the time. The Oregon shooting is especially sad for Christians because the shooter deliberately looked for Christians to shoot. I'm going to read a firsthand account of a student who was in the room when the shootings were taking place. This is a statement provided to CNN by Matthew Downing. He writes, Thursday started out as any other day would have. I got to school on time, sat down, and pulled out the paper to turn it in. It was about 30 or 40 minutes into the class when I heard a couple of shots fired. I couldn't hear anything when he had walked in because my ears were ringing so badly. When I saw the gun, when he walked in, the first thought in my head was that this couldn't be real. The first thing I could hear was him telling everyone to get onto the ground. I listened and figured that if I did so throughout, I wouldn't be harmed. He then told everyone to get in the center of the room and be quiet. He then put his backpack on the front desk and pulled out an envelope and said that there is a flash drive in this, and whoever survives this should give it to the police. He looked directly at me and said, "Hey kid, with the glasses, You are the lucky one. I will not shoot you if you give this to the cops." I stood up and he pointed the gun at me, and this is the moment I thought I was going to die. He paused for a second and then handed the envelope to me and said to sit in the very back seat and face him. I then did so as he fired a couple of shots into the crowd of students in the center. The shooter then asked one of the other students to stand up, and when he did, he asked him if he was religious. The student said he was a Christian and was shot. He then had another student stand up and asked him the same. When he answered Catholic, the shooter then asked if he believed in the afterlife. The student said, "I don't know," and the shooter thanked him for standing up for his beliefs and shot him. Oh, man. I'd like you to take a moment to think about these brave Christians who stood up for their faith down the barrel of a gun. They stood up for Jesus, knowing that they were going to die. Our discussion today is about why does God allow bad things to happen? That's really the discussion question. Why does a good God allow bad things to happen? It's a very good question, and I think it's a question that needs answering. So I encourage you to join the discussion on Twitter at @TheAliveAndFree. The Alive and Free, THE Alive and Free. If you're a church ministry or a small group, we have discussion questions for you in the description of this video. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and share this video. We'll have a new video up by 7 p.m. most Thursdays. If you have a question you'd like me to talk about, be sure to post it either in the comments below or on our Twitter page. Love you guys. I'll see you next week.